lost my heart and hope to die. Welcome to my dark side.
Join me on Patreon to watch up to 5 episodes of this series and others in advance that are live right now. With that said, enjoy. The amphibian-like doctor flicked his wide eyes toward the 2 battered warriors, the green sheen of the medical bay lights reflecting against his slimy skin. Their armor was shredded, their bodies worn, but miraculously not broken. Very few ever returned from Planet Zune with their lives, let alone walking under their own power. He clicked his tongue softly, almost impressed. "I take it your injuries weren't all that bad," he croaked, his webbed hand gesturing toward the humming rejuvenation chambers lined against the wall. "But the machines are at your disposal. The prince already occupies one. If you wish, you can make use of another." Raditz slumped into a cold steel chair, his long mane draping across his face as sleep instantly claimed him. Beside him, Nappa stood tall and unmoving, his broad shoulders squared, his attention fixed on the bubbling green liquid that encased Vegeta. The bald Saiyan's bruises were minor compared to the prince's wounds, yet his eyes betrayed concern. Despite his usual gruffness, Nappa would not leave Vegeta until he was sure the young monarch would recover. Still, his stomach growled. "No need," Nappa grunted, his voice rough like grinding stone. "We'll be fine. How long until the prince is fully healed?" The doctor glanced at the readings. "Another 25 minutes will suffice." "Good," Nappa muttered. Behind him, a loud pop snapped the quiet. Raditz's head lolled forward, the bubble of snot clinging to his nose, bursting as Nappa's massive hand nudged him hard enough to topple the younger Saiyan onto the metal floor. "Up! Come on, kid!" Raditz blinked rapidly, eyes fluttering, his voice a confused murmur. "Huh? What?" He scrambled to his feet, swaying slightly. "Let's go eat," Nappa said simply, as if that explained everything. The mention of food instantly erased Raditz's fatigue. His tail twitched excitedly, swishing back and forth like a predator ready to pounce. "Oh, yes! I could definitely use a meal." Nappa chuckled deeply, the sound echoing through the sterile room. "Heh, I could have left you drooling on the chair, but I'm not that cruel." Raditz narrowed his eyes, smirking. "Yeah, right." The 2 Saiyans strode through the chilled silver corridors of the Frieza Force station, boots clanking against the metal. Soldiers of various races crossed their path, and as soon as they spotted the pair, their postures stiffened. Some pressed their backs against the cold walls, eyes cast down. Others made an effort to avoid even walking within arm's reach. The contempt for Saiyans lingered in their stares, but not one dared voice it aloud. Experience had taught them that a Saiyan's temper, no matter how battered the warrior, could mean instant death. As they walked, Raditz broke the silence, his voice lower now, carrying weight. We really could have died back there." The memory still played in his head like a nightmare. Close calls, searing energy, the suffocating grip of death. He knew that if Nappa hadn't been by his side, his corpse would already be orbiting some nameless sun. Gratitude burned in his chest, but he swallowed it. Saiyan warriors did not thank each other with words. Their duty was survival. Nappa snorted, shaking his head. "You're wrong, kid. If it wasn't for Vegeta, we'd all be dead." Raditz frowned, confusion flickering across his face. "What? That's not true. It's because of you we're alive. You're the one who attacked and saved us both. You killed that monster when he had us beaten." Nappa laughed, clapping a heavy hand against Raditz's back with enough force to nearly topple him again. "Listen closer. That fool had his eyes glued to Vegeta. He never once looked back at us. Biggest mistake he could have made, turning his back on a Saiyan in battle." Nappa's grin widened as he replayed the moment in his head. The prince grabbed him by the legs, made him stumble, took a nasty kick for it too. But that kick slowed the bastard just long enough for my blast to reach him. By the time he turned to face me, it was already over. Vegeta did the real work. We just finished the job. Raditz's mouth opened slightly. The realization settled in his mind, shifting his perspective. "Oh, I guess you're right. I didn't see it like that." "Damn right, I'm right." Nappa licked his lips, already thinking of the feast ahead. Enough dwelling on that dung heap of a planet. Time to eat. Back in the med bay, bubbles rose steadily around Vegeta's body as he floated in the glowing green fluid. His eyes were open now, sharp and cold, fixed on nothing and everything at once. His small fists clenched at his sides, a faint tremor running through them. The final moments on planet Zune replayed in his mind, like a cruel echo. That fighter, so close to ending him, the humiliation gnawed at his pride. Was the prince of all Saiyans truly about to fall there, snuffed out like some weakling? Had Nappa and Raditz not interfered, he might not be breathing now. But the thought did not comfort him. It disgusted him. His lips curled in disdain. He would not owe them. He would not depend on them. Vegeta's pride was unshakable, even if reality tried to tell him otherwise. In the silence of the chamber, Vegeta's eyes narrowed and his resolve hardened. He would never allow such weakness again. For the first time in his life, the young prince of the Saiyans had brushed against the edge of death. He had fought before. Yes, he had bled before, too, but never like this. Never so close to the void that his pride itself wavered in question. Inside the chamber, bathed in the soft glow of the healing liquid, Vegeta's small fists trembled. Should I be ashamed, he thought, or should I be grateful? His pride hissed at the very idea of gratitude. Yet another voice, one buried deeper, reminded him that Saiyans only grew stronger through survival. Perhaps there was no shame in walking the razor's edge if it meant power awaited on the other side. And yet, it burned him to think that he, Prince Vegeta, heir of the most powerful race in the universe, had been nearly destroyed by one of an inferior species. The memory twisted inside him like venom. Still, there was another truth. He had survived. And survival meant growth. Growth meant strength. And strength was not optional. It was his destiny. But the mission itself weighed on him too. The slaughter had not troubled him. Vermin deserved extermination. But the purpose behind it? To watch entire peoples bent, broken, and forced to kneel in allegiance to someone they had once resisted. It made him grit his teeth. He had seen his own father once bow, forced to the ground by the presence of that so-called lord. That was different, wasn't it? Or was it the same chain, clamped around different throats? Beep! The sound of the chamber ripped him from his thoughts. The fluid hissed as it drained away, sliding down the glass walls, before the hatch slowly unsealed with a mechanical sigh. Vegeta stepped out, droplets glistening against his skin, his sharp eyes narrowing at the doctor, who scurried forward with folded garments clutched in his trembling hands. The prince snatched the clothes without ceremony, tugging on the pieces briskly as he spoke. Update, what is my current battle power? The doctor fumbled with his clipboard, paper slick with his own nervous sweat. His bulging eyes scanned the scribbled readings. Well, according to my records, you entered this chamber with a battle power of 500. 500? Vegeta's tone sliced like a blade. He stomped a boot against the floor, the sharp clang jolting through the room. The sudden motion made the doctor jolt back, nearly dropping his notes. But, the amphibian stammered, his voice cracking. Surely you were weakened. You were in critical condition, beaten so badly, of course that must explain it. Vegeta's scowl softened, the realization settling over him. Right. I am not accustomed to reporting under such circumstances. Yes, quite so, of course, the doctor mumbled, forcing himself to look back at the data. Then his eyes widened, his throat tightening as the words escaped in disbelief. But to answer your question, sir, your battle power has risen to 7,200? His voice shook. He read it again just to be sure, but the number did not change. 7,200. For an 8-year-old child, his gills fluttered as a wave of terror rolled through him. This boy already eclipsed the power of thousands within the Frieza force. What would he become when grown? What storm would the universe face when the prince reached his full potential? Vegeta's tail swayed behind him, flicking with satisfaction. A sharp grin tugged at his lips. So it was true. The harsher the battle, the closer to death, the greater the surge when survival was seized. The legendary Saiyan recovery, Zenkai. If I faced that thick-lipped bastard now, I'd crush him into dust. Good. He tugged on his gloves, snapping the fabric tight against his hands. Where are my subordinates? The dining hall, sir, the doctor answered quickly, bowing low. Vegeta plucked a red scouter from the counter, slid it over his ear, and without another word, strode out into the cold corridor. Soldiers stiffened and pulled back as he passed. Even at his size, his reputation preceded him, and for those ignorant enough not to know his name, one tap of a scouter was all it took for their bravado to shatter. The sheer number on his battle power readout was enough to make even hardened killers blanch and step aside. When Vegeta entered the dining hall, Chaos greeted him. Raditz and Nappa had nearly emptied half the kitchen already. Mountains of meat bones and discarded trays cluttered the long table. Kitchen attendants ran in and out in frantic waves, their hands trembling as they tried to keep up. Some tripped and spilled their loads, colliding into one another, but the Saiyans didn't care. They tore into whatever was set before them, devouring plate after plate with no thought of restraint. The rest of the soldiers kept their distance, whispering among themselves, glaring but not daring to interfere. One or two unfortunate souls who had ventured too close had their meals snatched away by Raditz or Nappa without hesitation. None of them dared protest. The feast was cut short when a cold, commanding voice sliced through the air. "Raditz! Nappa!" Both Saiyans froze mid-bite, heads snapping toward the prince. Their mouths were stuffed, their jaws working quickly to swallow. His tone carried no room for questions. "We're returning to planet Vegeta. Finish your food and report to the ship." He turned on his heel without waiting for acknowledgement. Raditz half rose from his chair, calling after him with a crumb-filled mouth. "You don't want to eat?" But Vegeta did not answer. He walked away, his cape of authority heavy on the air, each step deliberate. Nappa chuckled, glancing at Raditz. "Guess not." Raditz frowned, his appetite fading slightly. But Nappa only grinned wider, tearing another hunk of meat in half with his teeth. The prince had no time for indulgence. Plans awaited him on planet Vegeta, and Vegeta never wasted time. In the sprawling gardens behind the Saiyan palace, the air shimmered with heat, though the grass was cut to perfection, vibrant and green, a rare touch of elegance on a world so often defined by war. Here, beneath the shadow of stone spires and gilded banners, King Vegeta stood surrounded by a ring of mid-class warriors, his cloak draped behind him like the wings of a predator. At his side, several of the Empire's top scientists shifted with nervous energy, clutching their creations as if they were both weapons and burdens. Among them was Kuni, young, sharp-eyed, and already gaining a reputation in both genetics and engineering. At her flanks stood Shito and Morocco, each holding glass canisters filled with strange, writhing seeds suspended in nutrient fluid. Their faces betrayed calm, but their knuckles whitened around the bottles. Success would mean glory. Failure, well, under King Vegeta, failure was always paid for in blood. "The prince will be here shortly, my king," a guard announced, bowing. King Vegeta gave no reply, only folded his arms, his gaze cold and assessing. He had calculated the exact time his son would return. He would wait no longer than necessary. Either this project would bear fruit here and now, or the scientists would suffer the weight of their shortcomings. "Is everything prepared, Kuni?" the king asked, his tone leaving no room for pretense. Kuni tapped swiftly through the readings on her datapad, her clone-pale face expressionless. "All systems ran efficiently in artificial simulation," she confirmed. "But this will be our first live trial." Humph. The king's lip curled in thought. If their experiment proved successful, it would change the tide of countless battles. If not, well, then it was back to the drawing board with 3 fewer scientists. His mind drifted, just for a moment, to his true ambitions. These Saibaman were nothing more than stepping stones, tools for strengthening the Empire until the day his son would become what no one had seen for 1,000 years, the first Super Saiyan. That day was far off, but he could feel the current of destiny in his blood. "The prince is here, sir." All eyes turned as Prince Vegeta descended from the skies, Nappa and Raditz flanking him like loyal shadows. The boy's armor gleamed, freshly donned, his scouter glinting red in the sunlight. The warriors present bowed low. Morocco and Shito lowered their heads as well, their bodies stiff with respect. But Kuni did not move. She stared at her pad, fingers sliding over the surface, ignoring the prince's arrival entirely. Vegeta's sharp eyes caught the insult instantly. His brow twitched. "Do you not bow?" he demanded, his young voice sharp enough to cut steel. At last, Kuni raised her gaze, calm and unyielding. "As far as I'm concerned," she said flatly, "I do not abide by your Saiyan customs. I and my replicas are here to do our jobs, nothing more." The air thickened. Raditz blinked in shock, his tail bristling. Even Nappa, who had seen countless executions for lesser disrespect, looked at her as though she had just spat in the face of death itself. Rarely did anyone defy the prince openly and live long enough to tell of it. Vegeta's fists clenched at his sides, his eye twitched harder, and his voice rose, heated with fury. "I beg your pardon." "Enough!" King Vegeta snapped, silencing the brewing storm. "You are here to test your strength against the Super Saibaman, not waste time with petty bickering." "Super Saibaman?" Nappa and Raditz muttered together, surprise written across their scarred faces. Kuni's lips curved into the faintest smirk as she continued. "After I was told to return to working with the soil, which, if you recall, was my original idea," she turned a sharp glance toward Morocco and Shido, who both looked away quickly. "We advanced our progress, and now the results are complete." Vegeta's scowl deepened. Her idea, he remembered clearly. It had been his suggestion at the palace dining table, whispered to his father in between meals. Had she stolen his words and claimed them as her own? His pride burned. Kuni carried on, her voice steady. "Through refinement, we've established 3 distinct classes of these creatures. Each canister contains overdeveloped soil and seed, genetically altered. One set emerges with a battle power of around 3,000. Another averages around 7,000. And the strongest, our finest set, measures at 10,000. The gathered warriors murmured, their eyes widening. Raditz, ever the nervous one, blurted out, "But isn't that dangerous? What if they don't follow orders? They could tear through weaker soldiers." "That is why," came a calm, stern voice. Zorn, one of the king's senior tacticians. "They will only be deployed under the control of middle-class and elite warriors. The weak are not meant to wield such weapons." Raditz wilted slightly. "Oh!" Vegeta's grin returned, sharp and eager. He stepped forward, his scouter humming. "My current battle power is 7,200. Bring out the middle set. They match me best." His father studied him for a moment. "Are you certain, son?" "Of course." Vegeta unclipped his royal cape, flicking it off his shoulders with a single motion. He tossed it toward Raditz without looking. The long-haired warrior caught it awkwardly, stumbling as the heavy fabric smothered his face completely. Vegeta rolled his shoulders, smirk cutting across his young face. His tail lashed behind him, excitement coursing through his veins. "Let's do it!" Shido twisted the seal of the oval glass jar with trembling hands. The sound of it cracking open echoed faintly across the field. Inside, the green pea-like seed rolled lazily, its dormant body heavy with potential. Shido knelt over the small hole dug earlier, flipped the jar upside down, and shook until the creature dropped into the soil. Quickly, he covered it, then nodded at Morocco. "Here," Shido said, voice tense. Morocco tossed him a second bottle, this one filled with an unnaturally dark soil that shimmered faintly under the light. Shido poured it over the buried seed, his fingers pressing down firmly, patting the earth flat as if sealing a ritual. "Now, we see." He straightened and stepped back quickly, eyes locked on the spot. Prince Vegeta stood at the front, arms folded, scouter blinking idly against his temple. "Pathetic. Usually, the wretched things burst up in seconds. Seems like a failure to me." "Patience," King Vegeta ordered, his baritone cutting across the field. "Do not forget, these are enhanced beyond their primitive origins. They may require time to stabilize." The boy scoffed, tail flicking behind him. His father's words barely calmed him. He would rather be resting, or training, than watching dirt. His lips curled as he turned slightly away. But then, rumble. The soil quivered. Fine cracks zigzagged outward. The ground split with a sudden plop as a new life clawed into existence. A creature dragged itself up from the dirt, its skin a deep blood red, with eyes glowing emerald like molten gems. Its body was sharper, leaner, more menacing than the dull green Saibaman of old. Every scouter on the field screamed in unison. 7,000! Gasps rippled through the Saiyan soldiers. One of these creatures, alone, was strong enough to take planets. An army of them would be a nightmare. "Kekakeek!" the monster hissed, its claws curling in anticipation. "Amazing!" Raditz exclaimed, tail bristling in awe. "Success!" Kuni's lips tugged into a rare, satisfied smile. The creature swiveled its head, green eyes darting wildly as it realized it was surrounded. Like all Saibaman, its instincts were erratic, violent, unpredictable, but already its body twitched as if awaiting orders. "You fight me!" Vegeta's voice cut across the field like lightning. The beast's grin widened. "K-K-K-K-K!" It bounced up and down, eager for blood. Vegeta smirked. Ha! Without warning, the prince shot forward, fists cocked. His opening strike, aimed clean at its chest, met hardened claws. The impact cracked like stone on stone. The Saibaman swiped viciously, but Vegeta arched his back, twisting midair, and drove both boots into its torso, sending it sliding. Its claws dug furrows into the earth, halting its momentum before it lunged back, a blur of crimson and green. Vegeta leapt high, boots skimming the air, yet the monster was already there, rebounding off invisible footholds with unnatural speed. The two collided midair, and the battlefield erupted into chaos. Blow after blow, blocks, parries, counters, an aerial storm of fists and claws. To the soldiers watching below, it was almost too fast to follow. Only King Vegeta's stern gaze tracked every movement, reading every exchange. They were equals, for now. And then, impact. The Saibaman's claw carved through Vegeta's guard, slamming him down hard. The boy skidded across the ground, dust billowing, armor dented, but he rolled to his feet instantly, rage burning in his eyes. The red Saibaman pounced, but Vegeta was ready this time. He slipped inside its swing, driving an elbow into its jaw with bone-cracking force. The creature reeled, and Vegeta followed with a brutal barrage, fists hammering its stomach, each strike thundering like cannon fire. He twisted, boot arcing up toward its temple, only for the blow to be caught mid-swing. The Saibaman's claws raked across Vegeta's abdomen, screeching through armor, biting flesh. Blood spattered the grass. Vegeta's face twisted, but instead of retreating, he snarled, seized its wrist, and hurled the creature skyward. His palms snapped forward, Kai flaring. Gallic Blast! The explosion erupted above the palace grounds, a column of fire painting the sky. Smoke and debris rained, choking the air. Humph, Vegeta spat on the ground, clutching his stomach. Just as strong as me it may be, but its lack of intelligence will always be its downfall. Kick! The voice shrieked from the smoke. A red blur rocketed down from Vegeta's blind side, claws digging into his shoulders as it tackled him out of the sky. Arrgh! The prince slammed into the ground, pinned beneath its bulk. The creature shrieked in delight and pummeled his face mercilessly. Fist after fist rained down, blood streaking across the earth as Vegeta's vision shook. Nappa's jaw clenched. Raditz froze, but the prince was not finished. Roar! Vegeta's hand shot up, grabbing the Saibaman's skull. With a roar, he shoved it back, teeth bared, and thrust his free palm forward. Boom! A burst of Kai detonated point blank, blasting the monster away in a trail of smoke and sparks. Vegeta staggered to his feet, his young frame bloodied but unbowed. The Saibaman shrieked, recovered midair, and shot forward again. This time, Vegeta didn't dodge. He met it head-on, fist to claw, kick to knee, headbutt to jaw. Every strike echoed like thunder across the palace grounds, each blow answered by another, harder, heavier. The earth shook beneath their fury. The soldiers couldn't believe their eyes. "This is," Nappa muttered, unable to hide the awe in his voice. "A special moment," he finished, watching history unfold. The clash of fists and claws still echoed in the king's mind as he stood, arms crossed, watching his son trade blows with the crimson Saibaman. The boy was battered, bloodied, yet unyielding, each strike sharper than the last, each counter more vicious. It was a sight that stirred both pride and unease in the king's chest. Beside him, Nappa's booming voice cut through the tension. "This is a special moment," he said, almost reverently. King Vegeta's gaze slid to the towering warrior. For an instant, a thought sparked in his mind. He motioned the bald Saiyan closer with a sharp flick of his hand. Nappa obeyed immediately, lowering his head as he stepped within earshot. "Tell me," the king said, his voice low and steady. "How hard was the battle on planet Zune for my son?" Before his departure, his power was no higher than 5,000. Nappa didn't hesitate. "Oh, it was the most challenging fight the prince has ever had. He was moments away from being killed, but I stepped in at the right time to save his hide." The king's brow furrowed. "And my son, he did not scold you for intervening?" Nappa chuckled, scratching the scar on his head. "Surprised me too, but I suppose it wasn't about stealing his glory. It was me saving the both of them from death." He seemed to accept that much. King Vegeta gave a slow nod, his gaze never leaving the battlefield. He knew his son despised interference, priding himself on fighting his own battles. Yet in this case, he could not deny gratitude. Had Nappa not stepped in, the boy might have perished before tasting his true potential. "Remind me," the king said, voice firm. to host you among our mid-class subjects after this." Nappa's tail immediately unfurled, wagging with excitement like a beast who had just been given its first meal in days. "Really?" His voice cracked, but he caught himself, straightening. "Yes." The burly warrior fought hard to contain the joy that threatened to spill from his chest. His power had long rivaled that of many mid-class Saiyans, but hearing that his loyalty to the prince had been noticed, was everything. He bowed deeply, head nearly touching the ground. "Thank you, my king." "It is not official yet," King Vegeta reminded coldly. "Watch the fight. Prove yourself worthy still." "Yes, sir!" Nappa saluted sharply, tail whipping behind him. At that moment, a thunderous crash resounded as Vegeta kicked the Saibaman into the dirt, sending soil and rock spraying in every direction. He landed hard, chest rising and falling, sweat and blood streaking his armor, his lips curled in a fierce grin. This was the moment he lived for. The struggle, the pain, the promise of growth. "You're resilient," Vegeta spat, his eyes burning as he gestured for the creature to rise. "As expected. Now get up so we can end this." The Saibaman screeched, its body jerking upright, emerald eyes gleaming with feral fire. It clicked and hissed, eager for more. And so, prince and monster lunged, colliding in a storm of violence for their final clash. Hours later, in the dim glow of the prince's private quarters, silence reigned. The air was thick with the scent of sterilizing fluid. A rejuvenation tank hummed softly in the corner, its green light flickering against the stone walls. On a polished counter, a new set of royal armor waited, spotless and gleaming. King Vegeta stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as the liquid drained from the chamber. With a hiss, the hatch opened. His son stepped forward, healed, yet carrying a fresh scar across his chest, a mark of the battle that had nearly torn him apart. But the boy's eyes held no fear, only hunger for more. "Feeling better?" the king asked. Vegeta smirked, tugging on his gloves. "A lot better." "You can expect this to become routine," the king told him. "Until killing these creatures is effortless, you will fight them again and again. You must grow, you must harden. Before you are a man, you must become something more." Vegeta's smirk faltered, his eyes narrowing. "Right. For Frieza, correct?" The words lingered like a poisoned dart. The king paused, his jaw tightening. He knew better than to speak freely where scouters could hear. But here, in this chamber, there were none. Father and son had only truth between them. "Yes," the king said finally. His voice was low, heavy. "Knew it," Vegeta muttered, dropping onto a nearby seat, half-dressed, his tail curling around his waist. He stared at the floor, then back at his father, eyes sharp with a curiosity that cut deeper than expected. "Tell me, father, what is the history between you and Frieza?" The king blinked. The question struck him harder than any blow. Why now? But perhaps it was time. He studied the boy carefully, then sighed. "It is not truly about Frieza, my son. It began with his father, Cold. It was with King Cold that our arrangement first began. A cooperative business, forged in necessity." Vegeta's lips curled, bitter amusement glinting in his eyes. "Cooperative? Or do you mean one-sided?" The king's head snapped toward him, his tone sharpened like steel. "I beg your pardon?" The boy rose from his seat, half-dressed in royal armor, and crossed the chamber until only a few yards separated him from his father. His eyes were narrow, his tone edged with suspicion. "This subjugation mission on planet Zune made me think," he said. "Those people were forced to bend the knee, to pledge allegiance to Frieza only after their strongest were butchered. If Frieza is anything like his father," he paused, his tail tightening around his waist, "then King Cold didn't come to you kindly. He forced your hand, didn't he?" The words struck like blades, cutting into memories the king would rather have left buried. He remembered it vividly, the day Cold's forces arrived. The Saiyans had always conquered freely, taking worlds, seizing spoils, answering to no one. Pride and blood defined them. To be told to serve, to bow, the very idea had enraged his people, and so they resisted. Fiercely, but resistance had drowned in rivers of blood. Cold's armies were endless, his strength unmatched. The war ground down until the choice was clear: extinction or servitude. An agreement was struck. Saiyan lived spared, their way of conquest allowed to continue, but only under the yoke of another. "He did," King Vegeta admitted at last, voice heavy. Prince Vegeta turned away, sliding his armored chestplate into place with a sharp clack. But his father's eyes blazed now, his voice rising with sudden fire. "That is why I put my faith in you. You were born for this, Vegeta. Born with a power none of our line has ever carried. Your destiny is to turn a mere legend into reality. You, my son, will rise high enough to tear those bastards down from their throne." The boy's lips curled, but his question cut sharp. King Vegeta gave a harsh, bitter laugh. "Tch, I am already too old. In 20 years, I'll be strong. Yes, but not strong enough. Never enough to topple Frieza. That mantle belongs to you. From birth, your power outshone mine, your grandfather's, any before you." Tarbell, his tone soured. "Your brother has potential, but no fire, no hunger. A true Super Saiyan is ferocity incarnate. Tarbell lacks the warrior's flame, but you, Vegeta." He leaned forward, eyes burning. "You are the flame." The boy smirked as he slid his gloves on, flexing his small fingers, as if already tasting the power promised to him. "Good, because the thought of serving someone lesser than us," he spat the words like venom, "never sat well with me. Their day will come, and we will reign supreme. Yes." The king stepped forward, resting his hands firmly on his son's shoulders, pride and ambition surging together. But patience is key. Power does not come by waiting. It comes by bleeding, by fighting, training, and carving your way through every obstacle until no one can stand against you. Only then will you stand alone, the strongest warrior the universe has ever known. The boy's smile widened into a smug grin, his tail flicking with anticipation. To him, nothing mattered more than battle. Nothing except seizing the throne of his people. But now his father had placed an even greater prize before him, to rule not just the Saiyans, but all, to command the universe itself. And to young Vegeta, the thought of universal dominion was not daunting. It was intoxicating. "Most definitely," he said. And that's it for today's episode, guys. If you watched to the end, then that could be an indication that you enjoyed the series. So please leave a like on the video. Thank you and take care.